It's early in October. We're out on a family trip to the Driftless area of Wisconsin and Iowa. Currently, we're in Prairie du Chien, Wisconsin, along the busy corridor that is the BNSF's Aurora subdivision. I'm out trackside, waiting on a BNSF mixed train led by an ST-70 Ace Duo and two standard GEs trailing behind. Moving up to the north side of town, we see the mixed train has stopped, and heading the opposite direction, we see an eastbound Z train flying down along the river. Presumably, the mixed train is stopped due to track work up beyond town. Crossing over to the other side of the river, on the CP, a manifest surprises us as they head south along the river through McGregor, Iowa. KCS and a foreign GE from BNSF leads the way through the curves in town. Heading the opposite way along the Iowa side would be a local, fresh out of Marquette Yard, bound for the Twin Cities. CP 8781, the Hapag-Lloyd, leads. For the next few nights, we'd stay at the Railway Lodge in Beulah, Iowa. All would be quiet until just after dark, when a loaded ethanol made its presence known, splitting through the night. Dynamic brakes at work, keeping their speed in check as they descend down toward the base of the river valley on the Mason City sub. A few hours later, and a few hours before first light, the daily local K38 from Mason City, Iowa to Savannah, Illinois worked their way down the river valley through Beulah, again, dynamic brakes at work as the wheels screamed all the way down. morning, along the Aurora sub, back on the Wisconsin side of the Mississippi, a mixed freight with 8 locomotives on the head end, including a visitor from the east, and 2 ex-Santa Fe-9s, fly through Prairie du Chien with quite the long train in tow, headed up towards La Crosse. Back on the Iowa side again, we see the counterpart to the local from last night. This would be K39, Savannah, Illinois to Mason City, Iowa, hopping off the main and onto the Mason City sub. Underpowered for the unforgiving hill out of the river valley, an ET-44 AC, GE's most modern mainline endeavor, fitted with EPA's Tier 4 emission standards, gets assigned to the head end of the train as to ensure they make it up the steep hill without stall. KCS 5021 leads the train toward the hill. As seen here, the crew would still need to shuffle a few more cuts of cars around in the yard. That I would not stick around for, ensuring I would be able to set up and catch them at the location I'd wanted on their ascent up the hill. The distinctive howl of the Tier 4 locomotive is heard off in the distance as they make their ascent up the grade and through the jagged rock cut near Beulah. Along Old Highway 52 and Echo Avenue, they make a set out of empty gondolas at the Clayton County Recycling Company. Shortly after, they make their shove back to the rest of their train. After their departure, they snake through Luana as they push west. The extended S-curve near Cedar Avenue would be our next capture along the line. A downpour on Pole Line Road just west of Postville hits me as the train rounds the curve. They break off from a parallel and then cut across Highway 52 a few miles east of Castelia. A few miles now west of Castelia, I'm for once on the inside of a curve as they cross 155th Avenue. North Hall Street in Ossian, correct me if I'm wrong, would be our last stop on the chase as they snake through yet another S-curve. A standard GE workhorse struggles on through the fog and up the Mason City sub shortly after sundown at Beulah. The next morning, a unit tank train heads south along the CP Marquette sub. After a crew change, we catch them taking off from the namesake city of the line, Marquette itself. They blast through McGregor, heading south along the river. Below Gutenberg, they head under a tree tunnel with a towering, colorful bluff in the background. Back at Beulah that evening, an extra ethanol surprises me, led by a Gevo and AC 4400 CW, as they push up the grade. Near Luana, they cross over 115th Street on a steel and timber pile bridge. They continue west along Highway 52. At Postville, they kick up some dirt on the gravel road crossing on the west end of town. We catch them one last time crossing 130th Street as they push towards Castelia. Our last catch for our time in Iowa would be another K-38 local, an early one at that, as they scream down the hill through the night towards the Mississippi. A few Kansas City Southern GEs lead the way.